Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the Sedra of Vayera. And we are dedicating our learning to the safety and success of all of the soldiers in the IDF as they continue to work for all of the remaining hostages who require Keva Yisrael to be returned for burial, proper burial in the land of Israel. And even though we have a ceasefire, we know that sometimes these are the most dangerous times. And so all of our prayers and our learning and any dedications that we can make with this in mind are still vitally necessary. And when we look at the Sedras, this week's Sedra of Vayera, and look back also at last week's Sedra of Lech Lecha, which was the beginning of the story of Avraham Avinu when he gets the mission from Hashem to uproot himself from his homeland. And on the one hand, they look like just a seamless continuation of the story of Avraham Avinu, but we can actually see a very strong dividing line that towards the end of the Sedra of Lech Lecha, that Avraham Avinu is, when he has his bris milah, he is a new person. Gets a new name. His name is changed. He becomes Avraham from Avram, and physically and spiritually, he is on a higher level. And so everything that happens from that point onwards is fundamentally different. And there are many epic events in this week's Sedra. We see Hashem visiting Avraham Avinu after his circumcision on the third day, and we see the three angels who come to give him the news of the fact that a baby will be born, Yitzchok will be born to Avraham and Sarah, and also to heal Avraham after his bris milah, and also to inform Avraham of the pending destruction of Sodom. And as we look at the Sedra, which finishes with the Akedah, the binding of Yitzchok, we can see that the fundamental plank of Avraham Avinu's life reflects the pasuk in Tehillim, which says, "Olam Chesed Yiboneh." The world is built on chesed, on kindness, and Avraham Avinu is the epitome of this kindness. And I would say that it is the prelude and to the destruction of Sodom and Amorah, and the actual destruction itself, which in a way illustrates this concept in the negative, because it is when we look at a society of Sodom and Amorah that is built on laws that forbid kindness, laws that make kindness and hospitality a capital offense, then the only fate that awaits such a place is destruction. And these cities, Sodom and Amorah, in the land of Israel, because the land cannot tolerate this aberration, and so they have to be completely wiped off the face of this land. But I would suggest that anywhere in the world where there are unjust laws that are being given the full force of the backing of the law, and we can see, and this is around the time of Kristallnacht, and see how the Nazis, the Yamach Shamom, how they enshrined laws that were legislated evil, and we see that the destruction that eventually happened to them as well. And I think that this is the underpinning of the Torah, the underpinning that is relevant to all of humanity. And this is something that we can look and we can see how the events that happened and the words of the Torah that refer to the events that happened in Sodom show us the importance of chesed as a foundation of the entire world. And it is through the lens of what happened to Lot's wife that we can absorb this message. And it is actually quite almost begs understanding how a character who is given such little importance in certain respects, is teaching us a lesson that goes far beyond the few words that are dedicated to her in the Torah. And if we pick it up at the very beginning, when Hashem, before the angel actually tells Avram Avinu what is the plan, what is Hashem's plan for Sodom, Hashem says in chapter 18, verse 21, Ered na, I will go down, ve'ereh, and I will see, hakatza'akosa haba elai osu. If it is actually as that I can hear the cry of this city that comes to me that they have actually done. And Hashem is not like a parent who's upstairs and hears a commotion downstairs and needs to go and investigate who's actually responsible. Hashem knows. But Hashem is teaching us that this is a lesson that as human beings, we need to always check what we're hearing and make sure that we have got the message, that we are correct and putting one and one together and making the right total. And there is a medrash actually that this cry actually refers to a young girl who had performed acts of kindness, and the townspeople found her guilty of the capital offence, which the structure of the laws were designed to prevent people from performing kindness, and they put her to death for that what was in their eyes that crime. And we have to remember that when Lot makes the decision to go and live in Sodom, he does so because it is a very fertile land and it is very rich, it is materially very prosperous. And this was the attraction that drew Lot away from that incredible environment of being with Avram Avinu to a place that was so concerned about holding on to its own wealth and not sharing it, that so many other laws that were just designed to keep everybody else out, that were pushing everybody away so that they would not have to share any of their property. And this is just going against the fundamental concept of chesed, which underpins the world. And Avram Avinu is actually the trailblazer, is the emblem of this worldview. But if we look at the specific instructions that are given to when the angels actually come to the city of Sodom, and they tell Lot that he has to leave, that the city is going to be destroyed. And the irony is that even though the city is facing destruction and he is being threatened with going down with the city if he doesn't leave very quickly, he is still unable to actually get himself out of that place. And it seems completely incomprehensible. And one of the ways that we learn this is with the trop. And I'm going to show you. There is the word Vayisma, and he lingered. And that is in chapter 19, verse 16. And if we look here, on top of the penultimate letter, that mem before the hey, there is what's called a shalsheles, which is a note that it appears very rarely in the Torah, and it's a back and forth. It's the shape of a zigzag. It's a short line in the shape of a zigzag, and it represents somebody who is going back and forth, who is thinking it out, a bit like Fagin in Oliver. I think I better think it out again. There's this vacillating to and fro. He knows he has to leave, but he can't bear to part from this beautiful, wealthy city where he has chosen to make his life, even though it is steeped in evil. And so as he is, as the angel is telling him to go out with his family, the instruction that he's given is, Al tabit acharecha, do not look behind you. And so this is a very clear instruction. And we can actually see there is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that is chapter 4, um, chapter 4, chapter 4, Mishnah 23. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Al taratze es chavercha b'shas kaso. Do not appease your friend at the time of his anger. V'al tenachamehu b'shah shemesa mutar lefanav. And don't comfort him when a beloved member of his family is deceased in front of him. V'al tishal lo b'shas nidro. Don't ask him questions when he makes a vow. V'al tishtadel liroso b'shas kalkaloso. And don't try to see him in his hour of disgrace. And I think that on one level we can understand that this is a way that this is something that we can apply, that if somebody is being punished in whatever way in a state of disgrace, it's not something that we should turn back and look. The reason that's given that Lot and his family should not look at the destruction of Sodom, because we were querying whether they actually deserved to be saved, because they had chosen to go and live there. They had great difficulty in leaving there, and therefore they were not in a position to look back to think that they were vastly superior and actually deserved being saved. But then what happens, we are told a few verses later, and that is chapter 19, verse 26. Vatabet ishto me'acharov, and his wife looked behind him. Vatahi netziv melach, and she became a pillar of salt. And it seems a strange consequence, and we could ask that, did she really deserve that severe result from looking back, and whether it is the idea of the discipline of understanding that if we are told by Hashem to do something, we will have an urge possibly not to do that, to go against it, but we need to resist that urge on all occasions. And the fate of being turned into salt. If we look at what salt represents, that salt is something that in the right amounts is going to enhance flavor, it is going to add flavor. But the minute you go over that amount, then you destroy the flavor. And the Gemara in Brachos actually says that this pillar of salt is something that is visible to this very day if you go to the region of the Dead Sea. And that there were rabbis who used to go and see this pillar of salt, and they had to make two blessings. One blessing was that we bless Hashem who remembers the righteous, and this refers to Hashem who remembers Avraham Avinu and saves him and preserves him. And then the second blessing is Baruch Dayan Ha'emes, blessed be the judge of truth. And the other concept that we have to remember when we think of salt is that we have salt. It is the Pasuk in Vayikra tells us on all of the sacrifices that you bring. It says Al kol korbancha takriv melech. On all your sacrifices, this is all your offerings. This refers to any kind of offering, not just offerings of animals, of cattle, of fowl, but even offerings of wood. And salt had to be placed on both sides of the offering. And we continue this tradition because we have salt on our table, because the table has the status of a mizbeach, of an altar. So we are doing a lot of remembering and referencing to the wife of Lot and the fate that she suffered. And I think that we can take so many messages from that. And on the one hand, it seems to be such a black and white case. Sodom was so evil, and Lot and his family really surrounded themselves with this terribly negative environment, and they found it so hard, to the extent of almost being unable to properly extricate themselves from it. Yet we have to apply that in our own lives as well, that sometimes we may be swept up in bad environments, in negative environments, be swept along with the current, find it very difficult to get ourselves out of it. And this salutary image of the pillar of salt, that on the one hand is the emblem of destruction, of a completely barren environment where nothing will grow, yet on the other hand, because it's reminding us of the pitfalls, of the dangers of being in a place where evil is really the basis of the laws and is enforced with all of the weight of the machinery of justice, or I should say injustice, that we can see this is going to be a lesson that we can reference when we bring our korbanot, when we bring our offerings, when we sit at our table. This salt is just a reminder. And the Rashi tells us that Lot's wife actually was punished in this way because she sinned with salt. And the Medrash elaborates that when Lot brings these visitors into the city of Sodom on pain of death, and his wife did not want him. She was criticizing him for doing that, and he sent her to go and borrow some salt from the neighbors. And when she went to do that, she said to the neighbors, the reason that she's borrowing this salt is because she has visitors in the house, and that was going to be the door to open, that the townspeople will then come down on Lot and try and kill the guests that were in the house. And so, with all of these references to salt, to the fate of Lot's wife, we are able to appreciate and work so hard to be part of a world that is built Olam Chesed Yiboneh, a world that is built on kindness. And in this way, we should see flourishing in the land of Israel, for the people of Israel and beyond, for the whole of humanity, as they follow in the ways of Avraham Avinu and see the catastrophic consequences of following a society and a way of life that is the antithesis of chesed. Thank you very much for listening. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.